We begin with the trial that had the country riveted this week. That's the murder trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd. The heart-wrenching testimony has the nation reliving one of the most traumatic deaths of an unarmed black man caught on camera. Sadly, there are so many to choose from, but this death started the largest movement in U.S. history. But unfortunately, none of this is new. Over the years, we've watched as Black Americans become subject to police violence while trying to exercise our right to vote, or reaching for their wallet while standing outside their apartment building, or heading home after their bachelor party the night before their wedding, or playing in a park with a toy pellet gun, or complying with a traffic stop, or simply sleeping at home after a long day of work as a first responder. There is an awful poetry to this that echoes even today. Just listen to the sweeping range of testimony from this week, the first week of the Chauvin trial, including from the teenager who recorded the infamous death, or the infamous video of Floyd's death.
It's been nights. I stayed up apologizing and apologizing to George Floyd for not doing more and not physically interacting and not saving his life.
What was going through your mind during that time period?
Disbelief and guilt.
Okay. Why guilt?
If I would have just not taken the bill, this could have been avoided.
Can I stop it right here, please?
Mama,
Mr. McMahon, do you need a minute?
oh my God.
It's not just the range of emotion, it's the range of generations that you saw there that begs the question, what does the next chapter look like? One conviction certainly will not right all the past wrongs, but it will certainly help turn the page on an ugly history. Joining me now is Alexis Hogue, former federal defender and civil rights attorney, Jassy Ross, attorney and former public defender, and Jeremiah Ellison, Minneapolis City Council member. He's also the son of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who is leading the prosecution of Derek Chauvin. Thanks so much, guys, for being with us. Jeremiah, I do want to start off with you. The memorial, or the store where George Floyd was killed, has become a memorial of sorts. So I'm just curious, as we watch this gut-wrenching testimony, what the mood is like in the community on ground there. I think. Okay, I'm so sorry. Oh, Jeremiah, that's okay. All right, go ahead. We hear you now.
My apologies. You know, I represent the north side of the city, which is, sort of the opposite side of the city of where George Floyd was killed. But I've gotten the chance to get to know the organizers over at George Floyd Square. I know that they are desperately wanting justice. And I know folks all over the city, especially where I live, also want to see justice in this case. But to your point, I think that if we just view justice narrowly as what happens here in the criminal trial and, what happens on the civil side, that's really going to do a disservice. And that real justice is going to come, and I think people know this, through much more organizing and some much needed, more rooted change.
Well, I want to come back to you on that. But before I do, I want to turn to you, Alexis, because honestly, a layperson like me, I'm looking at this trial. I'm looking at the testimony. I'm looking at the evidence. It seems like an open and shut case, but I know they don't need to convince 12 jurors. They only need to convince one. What do you make of the prosecution's case this week?
Exactly. Thank you. And I'm so glad Councilman Ellison framed it in that way. This is a long road to justice. And as Black people in this country, we have grown accustomed to the fact that the legal system often falls short of justice. And so I cannot say that this is a slam dunk case. We have cases where there's been video testimony, video evidence. And I'm speaking about Rodney King and Walter Scott, at least in the state case, and justice fell short there. But what I can say is that there is something markedly different about the way the state is prosecuting this case. And for the first time, we are seeing the blue wall of silence crumble, and police officers are testifying against their own.
I think that's a really good point that Alexis makes, Jassy. Police officers are testifying against their own. Although I have to say, I'm cautiously optimistic. It seems like, every few years, it's like, okay, we'll give you this blood sacrifice, and then we'll go back to the status quo. What do you make of the prosecution's defense this week, Jassy?
First of all, regarding justice, because, both of the other panelists brought that up and, make very astute, brilliant points regarding justice. And I want to make clear that there can be no justice in this case because there's nothing that's going to bring Mr. Floyd back. The best we can do is the next best thing to justice, which is trying to make systemic change. And I'm actually cynical about the state's position of throwing Mr. Chauvin under the bus because it separates him from the larger system. And I think that's dangerous when we start to ask questions that's focused on an individual officer and the actions of an individual officer. We absolutely must ask those questions. We absolutely must pursue that officer with zeal. But it's important that the entire system, the entire police department, be the focus of, well, was this procedure approved? And if it was so approved, why was it approved? Because incidents like this are going to happen if that particular procedure was approved.
Well, I think you make a good point. So that's going to bring me back to you, Jeremiah, because, look, I know that the Minneapolis City Council reduced police funding here. However, the police force use against Black people is 7 times higher than the rate of white people. Even the police chief has raised this issue with the police department, saying that they perpetuate systems of racism. So you're on the city council there. How do you address this issue? Because I do feel like this is a moment where the Minneapolis Police Department and what's happening there is a microcosm for what's happened in this country forever.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at, people ask about the mood of Minneapolis, and I always want to make a point of saying, the mood of the people here in Minneapolis is probably not all that different than the mood of the folks, living in New York when Eric Garner didn't get any justice. The mood of the folks living in Chicago when Jason Van Dyke was on trial. And so we live in a state where this is sort of the legacy, not just here in Minneapolis, but all across the country. I think in the city of Minneapolis, we're having a really hard conversation about how we want to go about keeping our neighbors safe, how we want to go about keeping each other safe into the future. And I think that the conclusion a lot of folks are coming to is that police can't be the whole of that. And in the past, they have been. We're looking at the funding that we took out of the police this past year. We used it to make improvements to the Office of Violence Prevention, which is a health strategy, which is a strategy out of the health department to reduce gun violence. We've put it into mental health, creating a mental health response that is independent of the police force. But those investments, while $8 million is significant to put towards those investments, they pale in comparison to still the budget of the police force. And so I think we're going to have to keep investing in those tools as we move forward into the future.
Good point. And Alexis, I want to come back to you on this because we should note that the defense has not begun to put on their trial yet. I want you to take a listen to Mr. Floyd's girlfriend's testimony. I'm going to get your reaction on the other side.
Both Floyd and I, our story, it's a classic story of how many people get addicted to opioids. We both suffered from chronic pain.
Last I checked, white America developed deep sympathy for the opioid crisis. So what do you anticipate from the defense using this as potentially a strategy to justify killing this man that was broadcast before the entire globe?
Yeah, what we see with the state's case in that instance is to get out in front of what they know the defense is going to be putting on. They have to show that Derek Chauvin's actions were not the sole or the substantial cause of George Floyd's death. So they're going to be pointing to these external factors. And their argument, what we know from the opening testimony, is that George Floyd, according to the defense died from a lethal combination of drug use, alleged narcotics use, a pre-existing heart condition, and then adrenaline during that moment. And so we know that that's what the defense is going to put on. And so the state is softening this blow. They're also humanizing George Floyd. We hear from his girlfriend that they prayed together. That was how they met. And so this is critical testimony, and it helps shape the way the jury will then receive the information from the defense once their case starts.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.